The Watcher, the true story behind America's most haunted house. The chilling facts. Asterisk, what if the greatest achievement of your life, buying your dream home, instantly became your worst nightmare? What if, just days after moving in, you started receiving letters from a stranger who calls themselves the Watcher? Letters that detail your children's daily routines. Letters that know the names you've only whispered behind closed doors. Letters that end with a bone-chilling promise. My job is to watch the house and await its second coming. Welcome to the channel where curiosity is the only requirement for survival. Today, we're not delving into dusty folklore or campfire tales. This is a documented, evidence-packed, blood-chilling true story that captivated and terrified a nation. This is the story of an ordinary American family who bought a slice of the perfect suburban dream, only to have it twisted into a psychological horror film from which they couldn't escape. This case is so bizarre, so deeply unsettling that it baffled police, tore a community apart, and remains unsolved to this day. We will dissect every sinister letter, every paranoid theory, and every piece of evidence that proves sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't found in the shadows. They're your neighbors. Stay until the end. You will never check your mail the same way again. Asterisk, our story begins not in a misty graveyard or a forgotten asylum, but in the pristine, affluent suburb of Westfield, New Jersey. It's 2014, and for the Broaddus family, Derek, Maria, and their 3 children, the American dream is finally within reach. They have just closed on a magnificent, sprawling Dutch colonial home at 657 Boulevard. Purchased for $1.3 million, the house needed some work, but it was their project, their future. It represented stability, success, and a safe haven to raise their family. The nightmare began almost immediately. The first letter arrived just 3 days after they took ownership. It was typed on a crisp, white sheet of paper, but its words were anything but modern. It was addressed to the new owners. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard. It began with an unnerving, almost archaic politeness. Allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. So far, so strange. But it quickly descended into pure menace. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? I am the Watcher. I have been watching 657 Boulevard for decades. The Watcher's duty is to watch and wait for its second coming. The family was creeped out, but tried to rationalize it. A sick joke from the previous owners? A weird, disgruntled neighbor? They contacted the police, but without an explicit threat of violence, there was little they could do. They tried to put it out of their minds, focusing on the renovations. But the Watcher was just getting started. The second letter was more targeted, more personal. It arrived addressed to Derek and Maria specifically. The Watcher's tone had shifted from curious to obsessive. 657 Boulevard is awake again. I have found out that you have young children. I am pleased to know that young blood will be living in the house again. I have watched it for so many years. Was you sick, Father, the poor soul who built the house? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid too. I am pleased to know your names and the names of the young bloods now. Can I come to the basement? Do you need to be drained? The phrase, young blood, repeated like a sinister mantra. The Watcher knew they had kids, knew their names. The letter wasn't just watching, it was fantasizing. Panic set in. The Broaddus family invested a fortune in state-of-the-art security, cameras covering every angle, motion sensors, a full-blown alarm system. They hired private investigators and former FBI agents. They began suspecting everyone: the elderly couple next door, the previous owners, even their own family members. Their dream home had become a fortress of paranoia. The third letter was the final straw. It arrived after the family had already mostly moved out, living in a rental property out of sheer terror. This letter was the most unhinged yet. Why did you leave the house so empty and alone for so long? It cries for a family, and you did not help it. Who am I? I am the watcher. I know the history of 657 Boulevard and the history of the blood that has been spilled within its walls. Ask the former owners what happened in the basement. They will tell you. You don't want to know? Do you need to be drained? The house needs to be drained. The watcher was now speaking of the house as a living, breathing entity with a dark history. The mention of blood spilled and the cryptic command to ask the former owners sent the family and investigators down a new, darker rabbit hole. The psychological torture was complete. The Broaddus family could no longer function. They put the house on the market in 2019, but were legally obligated to disclose the threatening letters, scaring off every potential buyer. They were trapped, owning a multi-million-dollar asset they couldn't sell and were too terrified to live in. The mystery only deepened. The family sued the previous owners, the Woods, claiming they knew about the watcher and failed to disclose it. In a shocking courtroom revelation, it was confirmed that the Woods family had received a letter from the watcher back in 1990. They claimed they dismissed it as a prank and forgot about it. The judge ultimately ruled in favor of the Woods, stating the letters weren't a material defect they were required to disclose. The investigation hit a wall. Handwriting experts cleared numerous suspects. Polygraphs were passed. The FBI was stumped at who is the watcher? The theories are as varied as they are creepy. The malicious neighbor theory, the most plausible. Perhaps a resentful neighbor unhappy with the sale, the new family, or the renovations. The Broaddus family themselves suspected the Langford brothers, elderly men from a family with deep roots in Westfield. The elaborate hoax theory. Could the Broaddus family have fabricated it all? Perhaps to get out of a mortgage they couldn't afford? This seems unlikely given the immense financial and emotional costs they endured, including hundreds of thousands spent on security and legal fees. The previous owner theory, while the Woods were cleared, could it have been a relative or associate of theirs? The timing of the letters, always tied to ownership changes, is suspicious. The copycat theory. The original letter to the Woods in 1990 could have been a one-off prank. A new person, inspired by the news of the sale, could have taken up the mantle to terrorize the new family. The supernatural theory, the least likely, but most chilling. Could the watcher be a manifestation of the house itself? A local legend come to life? The letter's archaic language and references to the house's soul fuel this idea. In 2023, the house finally sold to a new family, fully aware of its dark history. The letters, for now, have stopped. The watcher has gone silent. But the case remains open. A chilling reminder that terror isn't confined to haunted forests or ghost ships. It can be waiting in your mailbox, on your quiet, tree-lined street, in the heart of suburban America. The Watcher wasn't a ghost. It was a presence, a psychological predator that proved the most profound fears are those that remain unseen, unknown, and unsolved. Asterisk, and just like that, we're back to the safety of our screens. But listen closely. Do you hear a floorboard creak? Will you double check the lock on your door tonight? The story of the Watcher proves that true horror isn't about what goes bump in the night. It's about what arrives in your mail with a first-class stamp. It's the violation of your safest space by an unseen, unknown entity. This is just one of America's countless buried secrets. From the ghost towns of the Old West to the unsolved cases gathering dust in FBI evidence lockers, the darkness has countless stories waiting to be told. Your move. The hunt for the truth continues. If this story made you question the safety of your own four walls, then you need to be here. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon because we are digging up these terrifying truths every week. Each story is more shocking than the last. Smash that like button right now if your heart is still racing. And most importantly, we need your genius in the comments. Who or what do you think the Watcher really was? A twisted neighbor? A brilliant hoax? Or something even darker? Your theory could be the key. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, are you sure you're alone?